the table. So do you want to kind of go over like your basic rationale of that thing?
So as an outsider, I've had, and I'm sure you've all had this experience of explaining to your friends and family, like, oh, I'm going to a hacker convention this weekend. Hackers have conventions. What does that mean? What do they do? You know, we've all had this experience. And I found myself sort of, the more I learned, the harder it was for me to define what a hacker was. What I ended up coming up with was the most general definition I could find, and it was, my goal was to get people to think about hackers not in just the traditional way they're portrayed in the US media of evil people. Is that most people, when they buy a new piece of technology or a new piece of software, they ask the question, what does it do? And hackers, or people with a hacker mentality, look at that same piece of technology or software and ask, what can I do with it? And for me, that's the most fascinating and important aspect of hackerdom that I've seen, is that this ability, this tenacity to view technology and look at it in other ways. But at the same time, the word is incredibly loaded, and to the point of being almost useless. You know, no one quite uses it right. And so, but at the same time, you can't get rid of it, and it's a powerful word. And so I guess I would suggest some strategies that maybe to try and sort of take that word back, and use that cachet, but manipulate how it's used in the media.
I agree with that. So next question. No, seriously. I mean, I've always tended to take the curious route when it comes to talking about what a hacker is, because it applies to me, and I don't think out of the box. But you know, it is a loaded word. But I've always thought of it as people who were able to, you know, tweak technology and make it do things that it was never designed to. And I know that sort of sounds like a cop-out, but it doesn't apply to necessarily modern technology. I mean, there were hackers in the 16th century. You know, they got lots of fame and fortune. They called them inventors, and they won awards. You know, the hackers of today are a slightly different, more varied sort of lot. And when you say to somebody you're going to a hacker conference and you try to explain to them that they're really just a bunch of curious inventors, you're fighting a losing battle, unfortunately. But that's how it always applied to me, so that's how I tend to use the term.
So what about the distinction between, I guess, as what we self-define? I mean, there's the public perception of hackers, and then there's kind of the internal perception of who we are. And there certainly is a subset of our community that views hackerdom as, I write exploits, I look at code, I beat the hell out of systems. It's not about the defense. It's not about the broader security community. It is all about vulnerability and exploit development and this low-level knowledge of how the systems work. And the rest of you people are all white hat asshats. I mean, there is a subculture about that.
Well, I'd like to just say that that subculture aside, I think it's very marginalized to one person, you. No, I was kidding. No, actually, on the awards point, we're working diligently to get, you know, hacker laureates eventually. But we have actually like a joke internal memo that I got about 2 months ago, and it's like, what is a hacker? What is a security professional? If you're under the age of 25, you're a hacker. If you're over the age of 25, you're a security professional. So.
Is Simple Nomad going to disagree with that?
Oh, wait a minute. I would say, actually, I'd say the difference between, if you say the difference between black hat and white hat, and this is an old boss of mine used to say this, he says that the white hat has a mortgage. However, I mean, that being said, I mean, I still have friends on both sides of the fence, both black hat and white hat, that I still remain in regular contact with. All the black hats think I've sold out. All the white hats still think I'm a black hat because I maintain those associations. I don't even say gray hat. Right now, I just self-identify as hacker and hacker only. You know, it's our community. It was our word. You know, fuck them. You know, whoever's misusing it. And that's the thing. Like whenever, you know, when I'm interviewed by people in the press or whatever, and they say, "So you're a white hat?" and I say, "No, no." I said, "I'm a hacker." That's it. And you know, that's our term. And you know, I mean, yeah. If you saw my talk that I did yesterday, I referred to as kind of explorer, because that's kind of, I think, how we do things. But you know, for me, that whole thing, that black hat, white hat, gray hat, that's just divisions being made by someone who doesn't understand what we do, trying to put it into a framework that they themselves can then grasp.
Well, I
So
think
screw 'em.
I think it's sort of. I'm not as vehement against that as simple as. I mean, I see it as an icon. You know, if you have to boil down, you know, a 3-minute conversation about where you stand, I think white hat and black hat has application. You know, I think here it's fine. I will agree that the media makes it really stupid, and I definitely agree with the Explorer thing. I mean, for me, whenever I was doing pen testing or illegal activities, which I've never done, he missed. That almost counts. I always thought of it as like caving. I mean, it sounds a little silly, but I thought of it as like, you know, if I had to put a mental picture around it, it was like caving. You know, it was like really exploring. It was this unknown territory that drew me in. And it just so happened that it looked an awful lot like a command shell, you know? I know I'm getting really geeky at this point, but if I had to draw a mental image, that's what it would be. So I don't necessarily disagree with the term white hat, black hat. I disagree with what the media has turned that into, and it's almost turned us against ourselves. You know, Bruce mentioned before the talk, you know, if we say this is a hacker conference and then we do a survey, how many people here have clearances? And you look at all the
Let's do that. How many people here have clearances?
How many people have clearances so high they can't raise their hands? Right, yeah, see? That's not fair at all.
I know. Wow, everybody else.
Dan pointed out, it's 2008. We've been having this conversation for 20 fucking years. We're going to have it for the next 20 fucking years. We've defined it already, but that doesn't mean we're ever going to be done. But it doesn't mean we're going to get anywhere with it right now.
So, okay.
I agree, Toby.
And Toby, to that point, the question becomes, getting to the social responsibility issue, do we represent a community that can feel a sense of social responsibility to actually get stuff done? And is the term hacker community the right community to levy that against? Is it the security community? You know, because there's probably a distinction. Again, that they start to get off into the defensive land and the productization stuff, and that starts to get away from, I think, what we would define as hackerdom, but those people still come to hacker conferences and may even self-identify as hackers. So what is a community that has a social responsibility to make things better?
This thing of ours.
This thing of ours, yes. We'll self-define.
We can just call it the H word.
And get a contract with Showtime.
Well, I just wanted to bring up like that. I just wanted to bring up that the word itself. We tried going with cracker. We didn't really talk about that yet too much right now. But like cracker was like this you know, piece of bubble gum that you tried inflating and it just kind of popped before it really bursted.
I don't want to interrupt you, but cracker is a food. And that's sort of how I've always looked at it.
And if you're from the South, it's something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, but I mean, let's be real here. The hacker community. There you go. Well, let's be real here. The hacker community. You know, we all started getting older. We were all 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds that started getting older, and all of a sudden the industry expanded, and people said, "Hey, we'll pay you to do this, but we don't want to associate with hackers." So, I mean, bottom line is the money follows, you know, and so security professional on your resume pays the bills. Now, some companies will say, "Well, I want a hacker. I want to show off that we have some guy in a hole somewhere that does crazy stuff."
That's the DoD.
Right. But in reality, you know, like if you want to make $1 and a cent in this community, then you have to call yourself a security professional and just move on. And as far as hacker, for myself, and I'm going to be honest with you guys here, living in Silicon Valley, nothing's hotter than a pickup line of, "Hey, I'm a hacker," you know. I can root your box and not even use a Trojan, all right? So, but that's the extent I use. That's the extent I use for self-described hacker, only to pick up on girls. And trust me, in the Valley, it works. So.
All right, so
Obviously, you came with someone, didn't you?
we got to truck on to topic 2, so there I am holding the agenda.
Well, before you move, thanks to Dan and Toby, you know, because I sort of agreed with this when Bruce brought it up. You know, we could talk for hours and bore you to tears about the same discussion we've had for 20 years. But I also agree that we got to call ourselves something. So now we're the H word for this discussion.
Damn right.
It's a good word. It's a powerful word, and you should hold on to it.
It's a great word, and you know, as a writer, words are really useful when they carry that much cachet, and so I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't